Hey, welcome to another exciting episode of Vintage Guitar Legacies. I'm your host, Sarah James. Do names like Waylon Jennings, Tony Joe White, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, or Steve Earle grab your attention? How about a 1936 pre-war Martin D18, considered by many to be the holy grail of acoustic guitars? So we thought that many of our subscribers and viewers would enjoy having a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, and get a close-up of some of the amazing historic and vintage instruments under the roof here at the Musical Instrument Museum. The MIM is dedicated to enriching the world through the collection, preservation, and accessibility of a wide variety of musical instruments and performance videos. We're honored to have Rich Walter, one of the curators of the MIM, to discuss and give us a brief virtual tour of some exhibits at the MIM. Hang on, because this episode is going to blow your mind. Following a brief tour of MIM's extraordinary collection of musical instruments and exhibits dedicated to some of the most legendary guitar players in American history, we were granted an exclusive viewing of MIM's Conservation Lab, where guitars and other instruments undergo restoration, repair, and preservation.
We're in MIM's Conservation Lab. We have a dedicated conservator who works in this space, so he's responsible for the physical condition and repair sometimes of the objects in MIM's collection.
It's very, very cool.
We're well equipped to take care of endless amounts of procedures, I'll call them, on instruments that just need a little bit of attention. So that might be cleaning, it might be replacing a string, it might be just attending to little condition issues before they're ready to go on display. We're lucky, we've got a big team, we all take it real seriously, and we just love having historic, high quality, meaningful instruments that have a tale to tell, and that's what we feel. We literally have the oldest known full-size guitar. So that dates to about 1590. It's a surviving guitar, so on the one hand, you can really go way, way back and say, around the end of the 1500s, early 1600s was a really important period, because that's when the guitar came to be. There are some really neat developments even in the 1820s when you start recognizing a lot of European acoustic guitar makers had pretty modern features, so that period of time got to be real recognizable.
Now we get to meet a guitar that is woven into the fabric of American history. The story of this guitar is almost as impressive as the guitar itself.
This is about 1860. It's a Martin 334 model. It's a beautiful little gem of a guitar, but the real story that makes it exceptional is the woman who had this guitar was named Sarah Catherine Walthall. She went by Katie. If you know the song, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down by the band, this guitar and Sarah Catherine Walthall, they were there. She lived in Richmond, Virginia. And so in 1865, when Richmond was the capital of the Confederate States, the Union Army came in, kind of reclaimed Richmond, and Catherine Walthall left, evacuated Richmond with this precious guitar. One of her decisions was to make sure she kept this guitar safe, and she kept it the rest of her life. She passed away, I think, in 1928 or so. She was born, I think, 1938 to 1928 or so was her life. But this guitar was something she made sure to keep safe.
Just seeing a guitar like the Martin 334 really puts into perspective how far guitar innovation and lutherie has come, even into the early 20th century when jazz music came into its heyday.
The types of guitars people are most familiar with, 1930s was, so many changes. More acoustic guitars were being made with steel strings as more of like a typical feature. They were a little bit bigger, a little bit louder, braced for steel strings, and that had everything to do with more people playing guitars and radio programs that needed louder instruments. So in the acoustic realm, there were some really important things happening around that time. And the 1930s was the big bang of the electric guitar. So that was a huge shift in ideas and development, and so many things got figured out in the 1930s that people are still doing today. So I think that 30s was a real step, and the 50s was another period when a lot of iconic designs were popularized and still made today. So I think anytime you have a decade 80 to 100 years ago, but people are still building guitars in much that same way, they must have been doing something right. If you think about Gibson or Fender or these big companies, they were making things in a factory. They needed to sell guitars.
They were made for a popular audience and people make them affordable.
They had to make instruments that people could afford to get them in the hands of people. And some of those instruments now have become so rare and desirable because it's been a long time since they were originally made. They haven't all survived. Some of them have been broken. Some of them have just sort of, led rough lives over the years. So if you have one that's still in good shape, still sounds good, still is up to the task, it's a really special experience to be able to sit and make music with a guitar from the 1930s.
Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for. This next guitar has touched the hands of so many music legends. It just gives me chills. Let's check it out.
This is a late 30s Swedish archtop guitar. It's got a really unusual headstock there.
Very unusual, yeah.
Well, this belonged to Fred Guy. Fred Guy had been Duke Ellington's rhythm guitarist for years. I mean, back to the 20s. He actually started playing banjo with Duke Ellington's early band.
Wow.
Stayed with him until the late 40s. Popular tastes changed and the banjo player turned into a guitar player. They started using these big archtop guitars.
Great volume.
Big volume,
Yeah.
would cut through a big band. But the other thing that is really cool about it, Django Reinhardt, the great jazz guitarist, was with Duke Ellington's band. And so there are some really iconic photographs of Django Reinhardt who had borrowed Fred Guy's guitar.
This guitar.
And so some of my favorite photos of Django, he's holding and playing this guitar. Here it is in color. This is the guitar.
Truly amazing. But MIM doesn't only focus on guitars from American history. MIM contains a worldwide collection of instruments that captures the imagination.
It's just as relevant today
And it builds
as
community.
it was. Oh,
As
absolutely.
you mentioned in your own experience,
Yeah.
walking into a room full of musicians.
Yeah.
And so guitars and musical instruments, which is part of the vision of the MIM, is to demonstrate how these instruments create community and how the voice of the culture that they're professing.
And it's amazing when you can see people who, let's say they might be familiar with guitars, they get into an environment like MIM and they can go all over the world, and even if it's not literally a guitar, they might see a stringed instrument or a fretted instrument or something that you pluck and think, I have a relationship with that in some way. I can imagine someone playing that. There's someone on the other side of the globe who has practiced and learned and figured out how to make music with this thing we hold in our hands. So it's amazing how these instruments and guitar being so universal around the world, it really is kind of an icebreaker almost to people relating to each other anywhere you go.
We also took some time to visit two of my own personal contributions to MIM's collection, where I know they will be preserved and well curated for future generations.
Well, this
So that's such a blessing. That's so
actually
cool.
inspired our designers to find this Buddy Holly photo and make it larger than life, literally,
I mean, look at
because
that.
it had a tweed basement.
I was going to say, that's
a reissued one, but again, it's pretty cool just to complete the image. Buddy Holly played those, and you can see it peeking through that image. So just to know that these Fender guitars playing through Fender amps of that era, that really was the building blocks of the rock and roll that a lot of people still consider the classic beginnings.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely in the right place.
Yeah. Well, we're proud that it's here. And again, your gift to the museum came in at exactly the time we were thinking about some of these brand new spaces, when we realized we had an opportunity to display something of this importance. It truly kind of changed the design of how we were imagining it.
It's in the right place. This is so cool. Rich, man, thanks. It's been a pleasure to meet you and be here at the MIM.
It was great to have you back, Sarah. We're super grateful for your support. I mean, you donated two of the most outrageous guitars that we have on display right now. And so it's really exciting when these instruments have a history with human beings. And then when those people get to see instruments that have been important to them or meaningful to them, and see it now in this new home, it's really fun to welcome you back, show you where these instruments can be seen by thousands of more people and just appreciated by whole new audiences. So we are so happy you're back.
That was my goal. And I mean, just look at this place. It's incredible.
We're lucky. We've got a big team. We all take it real seriously, and we just love having historic, high quality, meaningful instruments that have a tale to tell, and that's what we feel.
Okay, that wraps up today's episode featuring the Musical Instrument Museum and its amazing collection of vintage instruments. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Check out vintageguitarlegacies.com for new episodes, exclusive promos, and for access to our newsletters so you can stay up to date on everything we're doing. We'd also like to thank all the contributors to MIM and Rich Walter for giving us this tour of MIM and its conservation lab and making this episode possible.